Hi everyone, it's Professor Nugent. This video is a snippet of something I do in class that a lot of students find valuable, and I sometimes have students from other classes asking me about it, so I figured rather than explain it to everyone who comes to my office hours individually, I'll just create a little YouTube video for educational purposes. And the concept of this video is, what's the best way to save for retirement? Or what advice do you have for me to get that will help guarantee I'll have a well-funded retirement plan? Well, the biggest components of having the best retirement savings is one, starting early, and two, continuous savings. Now, the investing side of it is actually quite easy and not as complicated as most professionals would make it seem, because the more complicated they can make the retirement, the more they can hide fees and things and make you pay for stuff you don't need and confuse you and have you make more transactions. And so a lot of it is about making money for the financial professionals and industry, but it really doesn't need to be that complex or expensive. So let's say, for example, that I recommend that as soon as you graduate college at age 22, you start saving for retirement. Now, when you start saving for retirement at age 22, you have a significant advantage. So let's take one scenario here where we'll say that the average income of a graduate from our institution will make $48,000 when they start. So that's important because I just want to lay out the change in your paycheck. So the first thing, if I'm recommending that you save $12,000 a year or $1,000 a month. Now that seems like a lot of money. However, let's look here. If we look at your paycheck here, what I did was I took the 48,000 and I divided it by 52 weeks and then I multiplied it by 0.65. Now 0.65 would be your money after taxes, Social Security, state, and federal. And also there's a tax on Medicaid as well. Now, so $600 is what you could see in your check weekly, or $1,200 biweekly. So we're going to stay in a weekly mode here. From the 600, if you were to take $12,000, if you were to take $12,000 and divide it by 52 weeks, it would be $230, would be the amount that you would need to save each week to save $12,000 a year. So basically, I took the value of 48,000, multiplied it by, I'm sorry, C4. Okay. C4 times 12. Where is C4? Okay, yeah, so here what I'm doing is I'm taking 12,000 and this calculation divided by 52, then multiplying by 65. Now that's the important part, because $230 is what's going to be deducted out of your check weekly to go into the 401k. However, your weekly check will only go down by $150, which means that your actual check after, I should say, weekly paycheck after 401k contribution. So let me just, I hate unformatted cells, so I have to format this. Let me just reduce the text here. All right. Oops. Okay, so the weekly pay after your contribution is going to be $450. And so we could call this your pre-tax contribution. Okay. All right, so let's just review real quickly. What I'm trying to set up here is the fact that you're going to be saving $230 a week for your retirement, but your paycheck's only going to go down $150 a week. So if you have a $600 a week paycheck, your new paycheck after your 401k contributions is going to be $450, not $370. And the reason is because when you contribute to a 401k, you don't have to pay tax on that money. So normally when you see your full $600 paycheck, part of that, it would be higher, much higher, if you weren't paying taxes. So if the $230 is not taxed, the amount of money you see disappearing from your paycheck is only $150. Okay, so that's the first thing. That it's not as bad as you think when you make that $12,000 contribution to your 401k. So let's look at, you're 22 and you're going to retire at 72. So 72 is 50 years, which is probably the longest retirement you'd want to go. But keep in mind, when you're 72, that in terms of lifespan, if we look at the lifespans in how they've increased over the last 100 years, you should be able to live to 100 as a very conservative estimate. And when you're 72 with all the medical advances, you probably feel more like you're in your late 50s, not early 70s. So that's sort of the new retirement age. And I also would estimate that and predict that Social Security won't start until 72 as well for this age group. So 50 years of investing, and we're going to go with an average rate of 12%. So 12%, how did I come up with that? Well, if I looked at, if you made a portfolio of S&P 500 index, the NASDAQ, the S&P 500 ETF, and a NASDAQ 100 ETF, a Vanguard International Stock ETF, and the Vanguard Growth ETF. So this percentage mix between these four portfolio categories should easily and conservatively yield a 12% return over that 50-year period. Now again, these are estimates, not guarantees, but this is a pretty simple and asset allocation in equities, and that's the key with this retirement portfolio. You have to be 100% in equities, no bonds, no money market accounts or savings accounts. It would be a mix between S&P 500, which represents the large stocks mostly, the NASDAQ 100, which represents some large and middle and medium-sized companies, the mostly large companies also, the International Stock Fund from Vanguard, which gives us the international diversification, and the Vanguard Growth Fund, which gives us a little bit more risk and a little higher return. Now, these four funds have very low fees. Most mutual funds can have fees between 1 to 4% of your total return. The fees on these, if one interest rate's 100 basis points, the average fees on these funds are about 14 basis points. So you're not going to be losing 1 to 3% of your return to fees that most mutual funds carry. These funds will do just as well. In fact, these funds beat most mutual funds 70% of the time. These funds will beat the indexes they're associated with. Okay, so going back to the rate of return, so that's how I came up with the 12%. Remember, that's my estimate. It's not a guarantee, and this is an educational video, so you have to make up your mind about what you want to do with your own real investments. This is just an example. Now, so the monthly savings of $1,000, figuring no company match, your savings would grow to $39,058,000. Now, how did I calculate this? I'm using the future value of annuity formula, which takes the payment and it's going to multiply it by 1 plus K to N number of periods minus 1 divided by K. And it's a standard future value of annuity formula that you would use to calculate any type of investment return. All right. Now, what if your company does match? So I put in an average monthly match of $200. So this average match of $200 would bring you up to $46.8 million if your company gave you a match of 20% of your contribution per month. And some companies go as high as 50% of your contribution, and some companies provide no contribution. So when you're shopping around for a job and you have a choice between jobs, take a close look at what the 401k package is and how much they match of your salary. And remember, as your salary goes up, this match will increase because it's usually a percentage of your salary. So this $200 a month is a very conservative estimate over the lifetime of your working, and probably will be much higher. But I'm trying to keep things conservative so as not to overinflate the numbers. Now, here's the important part. Let's say that you don't start saving at age 22, but you said for the first 10 years, I'm going to pay myself to buy new cars and get an apartment and buy new clothes and pay back my student debt. Well, if you wait to age 32 to start your retirement, using the same variables, 12%, 1,000%, 200 monthly match, and your 401k drops to 11.9 million just by waiting those first 10 years. And this is really the biggest lesson of this, is that don't wait until you're in your 30s to saving for retirement. You'll lose $35 million if you do that. Start your retirement at age 22. If you wait to 32, you'll have a significantly lower amount of money to retirement. And if you wait to age 42, it drops to 3.5 million. And believe it or not, a number of people do wait to their early 40s to start seriously saving for retirement. And remember, as you start making more, if you start out making $48,000, by the time you're in your 40s, you statistically, with the growth rates of wages, you'll probably be at $125,000. I know it sounds like a lot of money, but when I was in college and we started out at $25,000, I thought $50,000 or $75,000 was a crazy amount of money to make. But that's typically what people do make in their late 20s, early 30s now. Okay, so now when you make $125,000, your weekly paycheck will still be reduced by $150. So after your contribution, your weekly paycheck goes from $1,563 to $1,413. Really not noticeable. So as your career progresses and you start making more money, it's going to seem like these contributions to the 401k really are nothing. Almost, you wouldn't even notice it. Doesn't really affect any of your financial decisions as far as what you contribute. In fact, at that point, you may even want to start contributing $18,000 a year, the full maximum. However, the first 10 years are the hardest. I will concede that the 48,000. Saving $12,000 out of $48,000 the first year is more difficult, but the payoff, just keep this in mind, the 10 years of that dedication to saving your 401k will make you $35 million upon retirement. So it's well worth the $150 you save every week for the first 10 years of your retirement. So that's the biggest point I want to drive out, and it's why you must sign up for your 401k as soon as you start working after college to guarantee a very lucrative retirement fund by the time you retire. Now, if by chance you wanted to do the full $18,000 a year, that would mean that you would have to contribute $1,500 a month. And let's say your company match was a little bit more generous at, let's say, a monthly match of, say, $400. Then you could bring your 401k up to $72 million. Even if your monthly match is $0, you would still bring it up to, I have that monthly match up there, 200. So maybe back to 200. If your monthly match was 200, it would be $66 million. So if you could afford it, $18,000 would be better to save than $12,000, especially for the first 10 years. But I understand that might be asking a little bit much because you'll be bringing your paycheck down to $375 a week, and that might be unrealistic to live on, unless you want to live in your parents' basement for the next 10 years again. So that's my video on how to save for retirement as an example and as a good strategy. And the best advice I could give you is start saving early and save as much as you can, and that will more than make up for any ups and downs the market may have. So that's the other tricky point. In this 50-year period, you have to consistently do this and never take your money out of the market. Never try and time the market. Because if the market goes down, you may feel, you have a lot of money in your retirement account and the market goes down, you may feel scared and you may want to withdraw your money to keep it safe. And that would be a mistake because the market's going to bounce back faster than you realize, and now you're going to be missing out those returns. So you're better off just not looking at it, let it accumulate. You can look at it during the good times. When things are getting really bad, try not to look at it as much. It's just too scary, but just keep savings, and the dollar cost savings will average out over time, and the market will always return to the higher point or even go higher. Well, a diversified portfolio will. Individual stock markets in individual countries are sometimes restrained by the country's policies, but overall, the stock market will return to a higher position. Uh, and that's important for keep investing. However, when you do get close to age 72, maybe 5 or 6 years before age 72, you may want to start shifting your allocation of your stocks into more bonds and safer vehicles because you don't want to have a stock market crash the year you retire. Okay, thank you for listening to this, and I hope it's been helpful. Talk to you soon.